This presentation outlines the Bromley Odour pilot findings. Environment Canterbury and Christchurch City Council, along with the community, have collaboratively worked on the Bromley Odour pilot since 2018. Since that time, we have received 541 reports of odour in the area, highlighting the need to solve the odour issue. Like most regional councils, we respond to odour based on the Ministry for the Environment guidelines. The officers respond to a complaint and try to substantiate it against a particular business. Due to the high number of potential odour-emitting businesses in Bromley, this approach reduced our ability to narrow the search before the odour moved or dispersed. We realised we needed to build up a better picture of who could be contributing to odour, so in 2018, we door-knocked the whole industrial community. We built a map detailing the businesses and their potential odour type, fishy, compost, fibre, glass, etc., with the hope that when we got a complaint, we could quickly rule in and rule out businesses in order to narrow down the search. This approach, however, didn't give us the absolute clarity and confidence to say the odours were being caused by one or a number of businesses. Even with several odour reports from the community, we had multiple potential sources in the area. The reports were easy to query or question. We followed the Ministry for the Environment best practice guidelines, but it wasn't holding up. So we needed to develop an irrefutable evidence base, and we will explain our approach to this as we go through the presentation. Due to the community's commitment to keep telling us about the problem, we soon had to re-evaluate some assumptions. We know now that chronic issues often evolve like this, that only a few people will know the channels to complain while the whole community is experiencing significant disruption to their lives. We've learned from this and have changed our mindset, our approach, and our response. As part of the pilot and this new approach to solve these complex issues, we asked 4 main questions. Is there an odour? Where is it coming from? Is it offensive and objectionable? Is it acute or chronic? The community had a range of views on the odour and where they thought it was coming from. Background context. The Ministry for the Environment Best Practice Guidelines sets out a range of measurements. They are hard to use if you aren't a trained professional, and they are on a scale of 1 through 6, which doesn't tell us much. So we designed a new scale for use by the community in Smelt It. This tells us the amenity impact, that is, how odour affects individuals in the community and their enjoyment of the area. So 0 would be, I haven't noticed any smell. 1, I've noticed a faint smell outside, I wonder what it is. 2, I've noticed a smell outside, but it doesn't really change what I do. 3 would be, I can't use my outside areas, but if I keep the windows closed, it's okay inside. 4, I can smell the odour inside my house. 5, I can't use my house for certain activities. And 6, I don't want to be at home because of the odour. Looking at the data now collected during the pilot, every day during March, we received a complaint about odour, even during COVID-19 lockdown, which started on the 25th of March. There were 438 reports in total from 144 individual addresses. There were 74 people who actively engaged. That means they requested further information on the Smelt It app. So to our first question, is there an odour? This graph shows the number of submissions on the vertical and the amenity impact on the horizontal. Remember, a 3 is I can smell the odour outside, so I've brought my washing in, for example. And 6 being the odour is so bad, I don't want to be at home. At the top right, you can see a graph that shows the top odour characteristics that have been identified by Smelt It users. These odour characteristics have come from a Ministry for the Environment guidelines. Compost and rubbish are distinctly the highest reported odour types at level 2 and 3, and at 6 there's a change to meaty, rancid, fecal, sickening odour types. To help us establish if there was an odour, we didn't just rely on the community. This graph shows when Environment Canterbury officers corroborated the reports by the community. There are multiple occasions where our officers smelt the same things the community did. We also engaged an independent odour assessor during the pilot. They completed 52 assessments all over the Bromley area. 29 of those assessments, the independent odour assessor detected odour, and 24 of those they detected compost. This map shows the sectors where the independent odour assessor completed assessments. The most frequent odour was compost, in both the prevailing northeasterly winds, but also in the opposite wind direction. So now to where is the odour coming from? We use scientific models to show the way odour moves through air. We take where people reported the odour and look at the wind speed to get an indication of what direction the odour may have come from. When we correlate the Smelt It reports with the plume modelling, you can see that the majority of the plumes intersect living earth and eco-drop, as shown in the yellow. The green circle shows where we receive the most complaints of odour. We also looked at other compost sites in the area, and our officers were able to rule out other businesses. The key reasons being there was no active composting on site, the officers did not substantiate any odour outside the boundary at these other sites, and the upwind and downwind observations showed living earth was the main source. This map shows more specific odour assessments by the independent odour assessor. The red circle is Bayswater Crescent, where odour complaints are most often received. The diamonds show composting sites in the industrial area, and the green star with the blue circle shows the independent odour assessor's location northeast of Dyers Road Landscape and Hire. On an easterly, they detected compost, meaning the only possible source of the compost odour was living earth. Pearson's was ruled out as the plume trajectory did not match. The next question that we asked was if the odour was offensive and objectionable. Offensive talks to an odour that anyone would understand to be unpleasant to most people, such as a fecal or a vomit smell. Objectionable talks to pleasant and unpleasant odours, for example, the smell of laundry powder or cooking food. These might be pleasant on occasion, but with a certain frequency or intensity raises objections in the community because of the impact it is having on their enjoyment of the area. The Ministry for the Environment Best Practice Guidelines helps us to describe how unpleasant an odour is. These guidelines use a scale of 4 pleasant to -4 unpleasant, but it's very hard for an untrained person to use the scale. So we asked everyone reporting an odour simply if they thought the odour they smelt was acceptable or objectionable. You can see in the orange that the community told us whenever the odour was a 4, 5 or 6, it was objectionable. No one reported a 4, 5 or 6 as acceptable. 88 reports rated a 5 or a 6, which means the resident needed to leave their house or couldn't use their house. 60 of those 5 to 6 reports in the month specifically listed rubbish or compost or both as having this effect. At the lower end of the scale, 1s and 2s, 3/4 of the reports found the odours objectionable. The independent odour assessor also reported objectionable odours. Of the 24 compost assessments, 23 or 96% were found to be objectionable, and 12 sustained intensely enough throughout the 10-minute assessment to give a hedonic score, and the average hedonic tone was 2.83. Warranted officers and the independent odour assessor together over the month for the ECAN officers and 5 days for the independent odour assessor rated the odours as between moderately and extremely unpleasant. The next question we needed to answer was, is the odour acute or chronic? Acute is described as a high intensity, highly unpleasant odour occurring infrequently or for short periods. Chronic odour is a low intensity, moderately unpleasant odour occurring frequently or continuously over a long period. During the pilot, the community reported compost for 29 days, rubbish for 28 days, and both for 25 days. We then isolated the ratings of 4 to 6. These stand out because the odour is now not only leaving the boundary of the site from where it emanates, but the odour is now permeating inside people's homes. The number of days we received reports that rubbish was being smelt inside people's homes was 19 days out of 31, 17 for compost, and 15 days for reports, including a mixed odour of both rubbish and compost. As a reminder, other odour signatures were reported, but for this presentation we are focusing on rubbish and compost. So in conclusion, is there an odour? Yes, primarily compost and rubbish. Where is it coming from? Primarily living earth and the eco-drop sites. Is it offensive and objectionable? Yes, at both low and high intensities. Is it acute or chronic? It's both. So to the next steps. Our engagement with the community. Community update started on the 21st of May 2020. The conclusions from the pilot have been shared and also what we are doing about it. An email has been sent to community participants and subscribers. Frequently asked questions about the pilot and next steps have been made available on the Environment Canterbury website. And this online presentation will be available for community to access. Environment Canterbury will confirm that Living Earth is not compliant with its consent, confirm eco-drop is not meeting the rules required and may need to get a consent, ensure action is taken by Christchurch City Council on both sites to significantly reduce the odour over a 3-month period. We will continue to respond to smelters and calls from the community and have dedicated monitoring officers in Bromley over the next 3 months. We will investigate other odour emitting businesses in the Bromley area and take appropriate action. Christchurch City Council will work with Living Earth and eco-drop to implement immediate improvements, ensure that this work reduces and eventually stops odour affecting the community over the next 3 months. They will support the dedicated monitoring approach to ensure changes happen and the community experiences the improvements they expect, and report progress to the community on a regular basis.